Hello, and thank you for joining me for going through the latest updates for Workday time tracking with this 2021 release 2. My name is Eeva Melasalmi, and I'm one of the lead functional consultants at TietoEVRY. Please note that the safe harbor statement applies to the presentation, as many of the features are targeted to be released in production only as of September 11th. On the agenda today, we have some highlights that I've picked out of all the feature releases, and then a shorter introduction to the other feature updates. And in the end, we will have a look at the time tracking roadmap. The first topic on my list is schedule deviation calculation. Here is also the link to the What's New post in Workday community. What this update is about, it's basically related to a brainstorm that was asking for new tagging options for the schedule deviation calculation. And you are indeed now able to tag the hours depending on whether they were worked before or after the worker's scheduled shift, between multiple shifts, or on an unscheduled day. In practice, this will make it easier for you to pay shift premiums or maybe require additional approvals for time entries when somebody was working outside of their normal schedule. From the configuration perspective, now when you go and create or edit a schedule deviation calculation, you have this results section with 4 different categories, one for before first scheduled in, after last scheduled out, between scheduled shifts, and one for unscheduled day. Before the enhancement, all the time that was worked outside of the worker schedules, it only got one and the same tag, depending on the different categories that were now introduced. From the configuration perspective, even though we now have all the 4 categories, you don't have to use all of them, but you can actually use the same tag in multiple different categories if you don't need to differentiate all of them. So as you can see in my example, I have only added different tags for the before first scheduled in and on an unscheduled day, but left the original tag for hours outside of schedule on the between shifts and after the last scheduled out. But totally up to your configuration needs. Once you have updated your time entry calculations, and when you would go and enter time, in this example, it would be for Nico, who is scheduled to work on Monday to Friday from 9 to 5. But then on one day, he has checked in already 6 in the morning, which then, according to my calculations, would be before the first scheduled in. So you can see in the time block details that we actually now have the calculated quantity for 3 hours that is tagged differently. And same, he has also worked on a Saturday, which is not a scheduled day for him. And then according to my time calculation configuration, all the hours that are worked on an unscheduled day will receive the unscheduled day tag. So not very complicated, but quite an important update for your time calculations if you have shifts workers. Something to consider is that, well, if you already have those schedule deviation calculations in your tenant, you would have only that one-time calculation tag, and it's now automatically populated in all of the 4 results categories. If you don't have any schedule deviation calculations yet, but you are planning to create them, the new result categories are automatically available, as well as the time day based on prompt that you will have to select as well. Also take into consideration that if you are using day breakers other than midnight, then those calculated time blocks are broken out by both midnight and the day breaker. That is something else. So when you go on and look at the time block details and the calculations, you might see the details broken out in more rows than what you might expect. If you have configured meals as part of the worker's shift, in that case, we will not apply the between scheduled shifts tag because the meal from configuration perspective is considered to be part of the shift. But in case you are creating 2 time blocks with a period of time in between them that someone is intended to be used for a meal, then that time will receive the between scheduled shifts tag. In addition to the summary of what I just explained, maybe to mention that what happens if you do nothing in your tenant, well, there will be no changes to your existing time calculation results. So even if you were using this, but if you have no need to differentiate the tags depending on whether the workers started before their shifts or working on an unscheduled day, for example, then your time calculations will continue working as they were so far. There's been also some minor updates on the time calculation business object. You can see the new fields, the add tags and remove tags here if you need to report on your configurations. Then let's go forward. The next highlight topic on my list would be time and scheduling hub. Again, you have the what's new post link here on the header slide. This has been released in the preview tenants in August, and again, it has the intended production date on September 11th. And what's there to come? So Workday has released this time and scheduling hub that is intended for the frontline managers as a basis where they can find all the critical time management related tasks and reports. I would say that the look and feel of the hub is more towards mobile and people experience compared to the other dashboards that you might have set up for time tracking. And if you enable this, you will see that some of the time tracking related actions will be now done only in the hub once it's taken into use. Let's get forward to see the key features, how they look like. Oh, first the configuration, of course. So what you need to do is you need to enable the time tracking hub functional area in your tenant, and then also check at least the setup for tenant setup hub and manager time and scheduling manager hub domains so that they have appropriate security configured. For the configuration, which you will see just in a short while, there's a new task for maintain hubs where you need to select the configure button for time and scheduling hub, which will lead you to content. And there you can, if you want, customize the sections and cards that are displayed in the hub. There is also a card that you will shortly see called workers missing meals or breaks. In order to actually take that into use properly, you need to create meal break rule sets in your tenant. But first, how can someone get to the hub once it's enabled? Well, there are many places. You can search for it through the search bar. Time and scheduling hub, the user can find that as a report when they search for it. Also, if your managers are currently using some of the dashboards that contain time tracking data and links, you can add the link to the hub in there. And then also I would encourage you to instruct your managers to add the time and scheduling hub into their own shortcuts that you can see here. Here is a quick overview of an existing time and absence dashboard. And as you can see, you can add the time and scheduling hub in the reports section, a direct link to there. And what you will also see is that once you have enabled the hub, the review time is something that will happen only in the hub. So you probably have the review time link already in your existing dashboard, and once the user clicks that, they will end up in the hub. What does it look like then? It has this kind of a sidebar in the landing page that you can kind of display, pop in and out. And then on the overview section, there are 3 main cards for my team today. So the managers can see which one of their team members are already checked in today for work. That's a checked in card, how it's called. And then there's another card for not checked in, which is displaying real-time information based on the work schedules. Just to note that these check-in, check-out cards, they are only applicable to your time clock, time reporters who are actually need to tell what time they started working. But if you have hours only workers, they will not display correctly on the cards because they don't really have to check in or let you know what time they started working. And as I mentioned, there is this additional card for workers missing a meal or break. I didn't have the meal break rule sets available in my demo tenant, so you will see no workers there or no data in this overview. Going lower still in the overview, there is a 4th card called Time of Spending Approval. We can see that in my environment, Kristin Sanderson has sent a time of request for the manager that hasn't been approved yet. This time of spending approval card is not yet actionable. I believe that is something that Workday will develop a bit later, but right now it's for your information only. And the manager would still have to go to their inbox in order to approve or review the time of request. Then lastly, in the overview, in the in progress section, there is a card for time entries to review, which is letting the manager know how many of the work of his team members have submitted time for their approval. And well, in the demo case, there's a big number of employees who are still missing their time entries. What happens when manager clicks on the review and approve time here in the overview page under the entries to review card is that they will actually end up in the review and approve section in the time and scheduling hub. Which then would take them to an overview where they can review the time entries for multiple workers at the same time. As I mentioned, if you have the review time link included in your existing dashboards, or if the users search for the review time task in the global search, this is where they will end up in the hub. The manager will have to select the filters, which of the employees they want to see and for whom they want to review the time. The filtering defaults, they are configured on the time approval template. Just for your information in case you happen to be wondering where they come from. So you can set them up there and then the user can change them before they go into the review. So once the manager has selected the appropriate worker group and click OK, the view for the review and approve time will change. It's now this chart that will give them a list of the employees that they chose and show some details of the time entries for those workers. You can see the review time period here. That wasn't something that you selected in the filter page. By clicking on the names, you could check more details related to the time entries, and then for the approval, just pick the employees that you want to approve and go forward. Something else to highlight from the time and scheduling hub. This is not purely time tracking, but I would assume that many of you also have the Workday absence management enabled in your environment. So the team absence calendar is something that will be visible in the hub only if you choose to enable it. So just for information that this is where it will appear. Something for you to consider. As I said, if absence is enabled, the team absence calendar will show up there in the hub. Make sure you have correctly added the users in the time and absence configuration for the relevant cards. As I mentioned, for example, the workers checked in and late from checking in, those might not be applicable to managers who only have hours only time reporting members in their team. Then if you choose to go and customize the cards in the hub, you will get this notification that says that you will not receive the Workday delivered configuration for sections and cards any longer. And for future configuration, you won't have to do it for yourself if something else is released. So good to keep in mind that this is something that Workday continues to develop. And if you choose to customize something with any updates, you're going to have to go and reconfigure the hub in order to display the cards that are applicable. So quickly in summary, make sure to enable the functional area. You have the new task for maintaining the hubs and the new report for time and scheduling hub. What happens if you do nothing? Well, you just won't see the hub and you will continue accessing all your time management related actions. Well, your managers will, as they are doing it right now today. Then to the next highlight topic, which would be the time tracking monthly calendar. Again, you can here see the link to the What's New post in Workday community for the topic. And again, this is something that is intended for production on September 11th. Until now, you have been working with the time entries in a weekly calendar view, but Workday has or will enable you to do that on a monthly view as well. Either alternatively to the week or then only in the monthly view, depending on how you choose to configure it. This also has a related brainstorm, so something that many customers have been asking for. And here's the link. As mentioned, you can select if you want to enable the monthly view in addition to your weekly view or only use one or the other. Something to keep in mind, which you will see also in the demo slides, is that in the monthly view, you only have the micro-edit entry options available. So not all the same functionalities that you currently have in the weekly calendar view for entering time. In order to configure, you would have to go and edit the time entry template for your existing template where you want to enable this. There is a section for the view options under calendar where you can pick the default view, and then if you wish to additionally enable the alternative view that the workers can use to switch back and forth between the two different ones. Also, you can now let your managers to review time by month. What we just saw on the time and scheduling hub section was that the time review will happen for 1 week only. But if you have monthly based period schedules configured, and if you enable the time entry through the monthly calendar, you can also allow your managers to review the time entries for that monthly period. That would be done through the time approval template. There is this new, the checkbox for review time by period that you need to tick. In addition to entering time by month and reviewing time by month, you can also allow your workers to submit the time by month or some other period than weekly. And in order to allow that, you would again have to go and edit your time entry template. And there under the business process category, you have the tick box for submit time by period that you have to select. Also, as mentioned, make sure that for those employees who are eligible for this time tracking, this time entry template, that their period schedule for time tracking is also monthly. This is how the enter time view will look like when you have enabled the monthly view. So quite different compared to the weekly one. What comes to the details, you can't really see in that detailed level in the monthly view. For example, what was the time when the workers started, when did they end? But if you hover over to these time blocks, you get the pop-up text that tells the times when they started. But for example, the work tags, they are not visible here. The summary in the monthly view, that will also show up the monthly level numbers. And here at the top, if you have enabled both monthly and weekly, the worker can switch between the two views. When you click on a time block in the monthly view, you can see the same details as you would see when you click on the time block in your weekly view. So that's the same functionality from that perspective. You can add new time entries in the monthly view by clicking either an empty calendar date, or if you have a calendar date where you have existing time blocks, just click next to the time blocks in order to create a new one to enter new time. And as for the actions, you can see here in the monthly view that it's missing, for example, the pre-fill from schedule or pre-fill from previous week. So only the micro edit is possible if you choose not to enable the weekly view. And just for your information, there has been this view absence balances button that is now moved under the actions section. That would be applicable to the weekly view as well. If you choose to enable workers to submit time by month, when they have filled in the time entries, clicked on the blue review button at the right bottom corner, that's where they have to start when they want to submit the hours. When the monthly submit is enabled, this is what they will see. The bigger part here, the work details, that this is the time period, August in this case, that you want to submit your hours for. But if you choose to enter the time in the monthly view, but not enable submitting time per period, then workers, when they go and start the review, they need to actually select which week they want to submit. So they cannot submit multiple weeks at the same time if you don't enable that. For the managers, what it will look like. So with this demo, I have actually enabled the review by period, and as you can see, the difference between or compared to the Time and Scheduling Hub review time screenshots, here the review period is the full month of August, compared to just that 1 week that you saw previously. In the filtering page, if you choose, or if you have chosen to enable the review by period, managers then can only select workers who have the same shared period schedule at once. So if a manager has team members with different or mixed set of period schedules, they cannot select all the workers at the same time in the review task. They would instead get this page error in the filters that you can see here. Also something to note that this breakdown section that was also configured on the time approval template. So if there's something additional that you would like to add there because of this change, then the time approval template would be the place to go for the configuration. So considerations for taking this monthly view into use is that you really can see the full time entry details one by one or day by day, and then the totals for daily and weekly, they are not displayed in the monthly view. And here is the full list of the time entry methods that are not supported in the monthly view. So that would be enter time by type, enter time by week, enter time weekly, quick add, and then the autofill options. So if you want your workers to keep these options as available, then you have to also let them access the time entry through the weekly view. That one or both. Here I've collected the business object and the domains that are related to the configuration, the new report fields. And basically what happens if you do nothing, well, you continue business as usual. Then your workers will just be using the weekly calendar for entering and submitting their time. Then the next highlight topic, this is probably the one that I am most excited about. It's called the time anomalies as an innovation service. Again, find here the link to the What's New posting community. This feature was from Workday Release 1 Plus updates. So it has been released into preview already in mid-May and then in production in the end of May. So if you are using or if you have subscribed to innovation services, it's something that is available to you already for up. What this feature is about is that Workday delivers this innovation service that uses machine learning to analyze the time entry trends. And that will help your managers to focus on their time when they're approving or reviewing time entries to the discrepancies only, and sort of kind of giving them off the pressure, not having to go through all the time entry details one by one if there's nothing that the worker has highlighted them to separately review. Basically to improve accuracy and help to eliminate possible errors. And in the end, hopefully reducing the amount of time and effort that managers spend on identifying the incorrect time entries. Time anomalies, what do they mean? They are time entries that are atypical for the worker. And to define what is atypical, you of course have to determine what is normal. And that's something that the machine learning does based on the historical time entry data, based on the work schedules and the time block audit history, meaning that whenever managers approve something or decide to send back or deny something, the system will keep on developing itself for pointing out what the actual anomalies are. Once you enable this, Workday assigns a time anomaly score and a top possible anomaly reason to each of the time blocks created. So as an example, there's a time block that has received time anomaly score for 87%, which matched to medium confidence level. because of the fact that the worker has chosen a very unusual time type compared to their previous time entries. There are 3 new report fields on the time block business object, so the anomaly confidence level and score, and the possible anomaly reason. The time anomalies, they will pop up in the review time task and time anomaly trends report, but only when the score given by Workday is with a medium or high level. So basically the time anomaly score has to be over 80% in order for it to show up and then alert the manager. For the possible reasons for the anomaly, there is a long list that will be available for the managers so that they can take actions on them. And then there is a shorter list of other possible reasons for the anomaly. But then again, these are the kind of reasons that won't show up in the review time report. So they will not directly trigger the manager to review the time entries. From the configuration perspective, as I mentioned, you need to be subscribed to the innovation services overall. And once you have that part set up, in your tenant, access the innovation services opt-in task. There, navigate to the HCM section, and the third option there is the workforce management machine learning services that you have to select. So just tick the box there, click OK to save. That's the first step that you actually configure in your tenant. The next part of the configuration is that you need to access the task for maintain innovation services data section opt-in. This is the pop-up, how it will look like, and there you need to choose the HCM workforce management machine learning services. Once you have selected this in the pop-up, click OK. Here you can see the landing page, and then you should opt into all of the 4 categories in order for Workday to actually build the machine learning model for detecting the anomalies. If you don't select all of them, the feature won't work. Then continuing with the configuration, after you have done the setup at the tenant level, you need to go and edit your time approval template or create a new one if that's the result. When you open the task, scroll all the way down to the bottom where you then see this include time anomalies checkbox that you should select. Workday delivers one new standard report for time anomaly trends, but if that's something that doesn't meet your needs fully, you can always copy that or create your completely own custom report by using the all time blocks report data source. So all the new fields will be available there for the report configuration. How does this look like then if you once you have set it all up in your tenant? When the manager goes to review time, what will appear here on the review time page is a section for workers with possible time anomalies and additional column information for possible time anomaly count. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough history data in my demo environment so that I could have actually gotten any results here. But if you want to see how that actually looks like when there are some anomalies to report, please go and check the original What's New recording in Workday community. Also, as mentioned, there is this time anomaly trends report that you can choose to display for your managers, but same thing, unfortunately, for the demo, as I don't have the history data in the environment, the report won't actually show me any results. So for the additional considerations, again, repeating, you have to be subscribed to the innovation services and then do the opt-ins in your tenants. If you are not subscribed, contact your own customer success manager for the innovation services order form and other further details. And also there is, here's the link to the innovation services descriptions and exhibits information that is available about the innovation services overall in Workday community. So go and check that if you're interested more in this feature. What happens if you do nothing? Well, you will see no changes. These anomalies will not show up in the review time report. But I think this is a really cool feature, considering that you can really make the life easier for your managers or other security groups who are reviewing the time entries, and kind of once this is all up and running, it will really help them to identify the cases that they need to pay extra attention on, and then to kind of confidently just approve the other standard time entries without spending any extra time with them. So yeah, cool feature. Then, as I mentioned, we have a long list of other features. I could have explained more about many of these, but with the time constraints, I had to keep them under the shorter categories. But I hope that you will get enough information from the one-pagers that I have put together for all the other features. First one on the list is check-in reporting. That was part of the release 2 updates that are in preview already, but targeted in production in September 11th. So this continues the time anomaly topic from the perspective that what you can do now, even without the innovation services, you can report on whether or not workers checked in from a Workday mobile application or not. So if you, for whatever reason, don't trust that the workers actually entered their time with their mobile devices as per your company policies, you can now report on it and check if the time entries were done through the web UI or on the mobile application. For this feature to work, there is a new report field for time entry created from. It's on these 2 business objects and secured in these 2 domains. What you need to do in order to set this up is that you actually have to go into your tenant settings for HCM, and there under the time tracking section you can find a tick box for enable standard mobile check-in. So this must be selected so that your workers can check in through mobile in the first place. But if they can, just start reporting on their time entries. This also was related to a brainstorm, which I forgot to mention. Here's the link to the brainstorm that was asking for this feature. So if you're interested in, go and check it out. I guess voting at this point doesn't really improve the situation, as it's going to be released very soon. Then to the next topic, continuing with the check-in, check-out theme. So if you have enabled the people experience features in your tenant, there are these new check-in and check-out cards on the people experience homepage that you can display to your clock in out time reporting employees. Previously, you needed to navigate into the time work level or someplace else, and the checking in was behind a couple of clicks, but now the worker can do it directly on the home landing page if this is enabled. For configuring, the task is called Configure People Experience Homepage Content, and there are 3 cards that you can use. They are called Check-in, Check-out with Prevent Consecutive Check-in enabled, and then separately Check-in with Prevent Consecutive Check-in not enabled, and Check-out for the same setup. So depending on your consecutive check-in configurations, you should pick either the check-in, check-out with the consecutive check-ins prevented, or then these 2 separately if you allow that. Then going forward and continuing with the theme of the check-ins, Workday now enables you to configure a warning for the situation when your employee has already checked in and they try to check in again. And this is, of course, depending on if you have decided to prevent the consecutive check-ins or not. This has been in preview already since June 18. Here are the links to the What's New post, and also this feature had a related brainstorm, also linked here on the slide. What you need to do in order to set this up is that you need to access Edit Time Entry Template, and there under the Time Clock Event Matching section, check the Warn Worker on Consecutive Check-ins box. And then once you check the box, there is a default warning message that appears. But then if you wish, you can customize it, just write something else. And for your information, tiny details, but this field, prevent matching off consecutive check-ins, it has been renamed. So it used to be just prevent matching consecutive check-ins. If you are allowing check-in and out on mobile, this feature actually doesn't bring anything additional to mobile, because in mobile you are not allowed to do consecutive check-ins in any case. Then next on my list is some updates for Workday Assistant for time tracking. This is something that has been one of the Release 1 Plus feature updates. It has been in preview already since February and enabled in production in March. So if you are using Workday Assistant, they're available for you to configure. What this does is that once you are using the assistant, the workers can now access the time tracking actions through the assistant, so they don't need to search them through the search bar or click the links. So if you find this more convenient, you can just have a conversation, and then the Workday assistant suggests you the correct task to use. Also, just as a reminder, that Workday Assistant, that's part of the innovation services, as was the time anomalies. So you need to have a subscription to those. If you don't, then contact your customer success manager for further information and the innovation services order form. If you have enabled this and it doesn't work for some reason, make sure to check the security configuration notes. You can see the details in the What's New post that is linked here on the slide. And if for some reason you don't want to enable this for time tracking, but you are using the Workday Assistant, then go to the Edit Tenant Setup Assistant task, where you can choose to disable it. And also for information, if you have enabled Workday Assistant for Slack or Microsoft Teams, these time tracking actions are available for adding to those applications as well. Next topic, again from the Release 1 Plus updates, is a minor improvement for maintaining invalid time clock events task. You can now filter the time period that you want to review, and then possibly fix if there are some errors. And in addition to the start and end date fields, Workday has also added this show reference ID and employee ID tick box, so that once you run the report with these details included, you can more easily create an EIB template for you to upload and fix the time entries, if that's how you like to process them. This is something that is automatically available, so nothing for you to do, but just pay attention that it's now there. So if you have any training materials, then you might want to revise those. Going forward and moving on to the time calculations, Workday now allows you to configure the time calculation tags on time offs if you are using time offs from the absence management module, and you can refer to the time calculation tags easily in your time calculations in the time tracking site. So basically, it will make it easier to take into account both work time and time off in your time calculations. Here are the links to the What's New post in Workday community and the related brainstorm that was behind this update. Just as a note that this works for all the other time calculation types except for the minimum rest. And from usability perspective, if you choose to set this up and configure it, and if you allow your workers to request time off through the absence functionalities, they would also have to submit that same request through the time tracking calendar, so that the calculation tags from the time offs are actually included and the time calculations do run. So from configurations, first you would go and edit your time entry templates, and under the time entry section for time of calculations, you would select the enable calculated time of tick box. If you want to rerun your calculations, set the retro date. If this is something new, just pick a suitable date as of today or in the future. And once you have done that, you need to go and edit your time offs, the ones that are applicable to your calculations. And under the time off details, there is a section to add the calculation tags. So you can either add there your existing time calculation tags, or if you need to, then create new ones that are more suitable for your time calculation needs. Again, if you don't do anything, well, your time off and absence functionalities will continue working as they are today. So optional improvement for you to start using. Then about reporting on inactive work schedules, with the main Workday 2021 Release 1 features, since then you are now able to inactivate work schedule calendars. If you have such calendars where the assignments that used to be there have been deleted, or assignments that have an end date before that date when you want to inactivate the work schedule calendar, just keep in mind that once you do inactivate a calendar, it's not possible to reactivate it or edit that any longer. And what's now being introduced with the latest update is that Workday just delivered a new inactive report field that you can use for reporting on inactive work schedule calendars. The field inactive is on these two business on the business object for work schedule calendar, and it's secured under the public reporting items. In the UI, if you have a report for showing all the work schedule calendar details, you can now add a column there that shows yes for a work schedule that has been inactivated. Then continuing with reporting. So Workday will now allow you to include terminated employees in your time tracking reports. This has been released in preview in June and then again targeted with the September 11th release. This was related to a brainstorm with a higher number of votes. The brainstorm is linked here if you're interested. But basically what this allows you to do is that when you have time tracking reports on the all time blocks and time of entries data source, there is a new prompt to also include terminated workers there in the report. The prompt is updated also on the data source filters for all time blocks and time of entries by cost center and time off secured by supervisor organization. You don't really need to do anything to enable this. The prompt, it will be available there in the reports on that data source. But just that once you run the reports, Workday will ask if you want to include also possibly terminated workers for that time period that you're checking the time entries. Yeah. That's about it. Just start using it if you see that valuable. Then about pay on demand functionality, something that is applicable to you actually only if you are a Workday payroll customer. But for information, with release 1 for payroll users, Workday introduced this pay on demand functionality. Here's a link to the What's New post if you want to learn more about that. And what has been released now in the autumn update is that when you go and access the pay on demand request, Workday shows this worked time breakdown section there. So this is something that is in preview already and intended in production on September 11th. Then in the end, some more technical updates. So for the time tracking REST web services, if you are giving some of your external applications access to Workday with the time tracking REST web services, the newer version now enables managers to create, review, and modify workers' time entries through that, and workers to enter time as well as review and modify their recent time entries, and for you to view workers' period schedules and time entry validations. So this is the list of the values that the updated REST web service is able to get you. And also you can allow your applications to filter time blocks by project plan phase and task if you are using Workday projects. What do you need to do? Well, nothing. The REST web service is there available for you to start using it. And of course, you may need to update your existing configurations in order to get the full benefit out of it. And also, again, pay attention to your security. So if you don't see something happening as you would expect after you have done the configuration, then check these domains if it's about data security, why something doesn't work. The last other update on my list would be again related to web services, but this time for the spreadsheet layouts. So Workday has started streamlining the layout of EIB web service templates, and for the import reported time blocks, this is a very nice update for you who are working with mass updates of time entries. So you don't need to fill in the details anymore separately on two different tabs, but instead you would only have one tab in the workbook where you can just fill in all the necessary details. So the header tab is removed, and the header key and line key columns are now replaced with a new spreadsheet column on the one and only remaining tab. It's automatically available, but you may need to, if you have already created the import reported time block EIB web service, you're going to have to update that in order to start using the most recent template. Then a quick view to the time tracking roadmap. Here is also a link to the community page. You can go and check the presentation there. The last time I checked, just a couple of days ago, the presentation was still introducing most of the features that were now part of the release 2 and also included in this presentation. So not much new from that perspective. In general, if I check Workday community, there are not too many. There are 10 brainstorms that are currently considered as a roadmap candidate for time tracking. Just wanted to highlight one, which is called Better Audit Reporting for Time Clock Events. So this continues the theme for providing the time reviewers supporting data and making it easier for them to make judgments on whether or not the time entries are okay to approve as is, or if there's something that needs to be highlighted and reviewed more carefully. To mention from the roadmap, the 3 investment themes for Workday time tracking are experience. So basically the user experience. Workday says that they have targeted to provide intuitive, smart, and simple user experience for time tracking users. And that's what they want to approve, and that's also what some of the release 2 feature updates are supporting. Then again, the efficiency, so providing features that enable agility and efficiency in day-to-day operations by removing manual tasks and streamlining processes. But the time anomalies and these new enhancements around auditing of time entries, they support this investment theme, in my opinion, pretty well. But there are new features to come from that perspective again. And then, of course, Workday wants to provide the users with tools to help manage the global compliance requirements and to help them react to changing working regulations and laws. So make your time entry configuration to meet the compliance requirements. This was the end of the actual presentation part. Even though we are not in the live webinar anymore, we appreciate your feedback and welcome your questions if you have any based on the recording. Just reach out to us if there's anything additional that you would like to know. And then I will thank you for your time and listening to the presentation and wish you a nice rest of the day.